is the 41st millennium. To be a man in such times is to be amongst untold billions. Is to live in the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable. These are the tales of those times. Forget the power of technology and science, for so much has been forgotten, never to be relearned. Forget the promise of progress and understanding. For the grim dark future, there is only war. There is no peace amongst the stars, only an eternity of carnage and slaughter and the laughter of the thirsting gods.
Hey everybody, so let's jump right into it. So Warhammer 40k started off as a board game. It basically was a derivative from Warhammer Fantasy, where people basically would build and paint an army of their choice from a bunch of different factions and have battles to see who would be victorious. You can see some awesome footage from Warhammer World of some badass army setups right now on your screen. Now the game has come a long way from the 80s when it started. It has really grown from a simple board game to encompassing video games, comics, anime series, and hopefully soon a TV series or a movie series with Amazon that Henry Cavill's backing. I'm breaking this up into two parts. One which is going to cover the tabletop game, and a second which is going to cover the lore. Which isn't everything, because you're still missing out on the video games, animes, potential movies, etc. And in order to cover all this, we're really going to have to break it up into a couple of sections. So the first is going to be about the tabletop game, and then the second is going to be into the lore, which is going to have a bunch of subcategories. So if you want to jump ahead to different sections, please feel free to do so with the links below. And for the record, I'm not including the video games in this video because it's just way too much to cover. And if you enjoy this content, please throw a like on it, subscribe, throw some comments. If you don't, throw some hate, man. Let me know what's up and what I can do to be better. And don't hesitate to send me suggestions. I want to make some new videos. Give me some ideas on some content, and we'll see what we can put together. Now let's have a brief moment of nostalgia with a commercial from the 90s from Games Workshop.
These days, kids are virtually glued to a TV screen. It just doesn't have to be that way. Get into Games Workshop today and discover a world of interaction and creativity. At Games Workshop, you collect, paint, and build figures and scenes for face-to-face tabletop strategic battles. It's social, it's creative, and it's fun.
So folks, how the tabletop game would work is you basically would pick an army. Every different unit would have points to it, so that we would make it fair, on whoever you were fighting against. So that way it would be an equal battlefield, if you will. You'd pick your units, whatever you had, to get up to those certain points, and then you guys would pick a scenario and basically fight it out. The movements are done in inches. Depending on whatever your attack was versus a toughness, you'd have to get a certain roll, and obviously you have some saving throws. Outside of that, hand-to-hand combat, range combats in different phases, and it's pretty much just like any other strategy type game that you've ever played if you've played a tabletop game before. But I will say, the vast array of units, weapons, and just the full amount of detail makes 40k really stand out above the rest. Along with the vast option of armies, it's just the huge amount of different scenarios that you're able to play, as well as the customization that you're able to bring into it yourself. I've known people to do massive wars between 7-8 people. It really gets down to whatever you want and what kind of experience you want to get out of the game. But everybody's really following a main core base set of rules.
They shall be my finest warriors, these men who give of themselves to me. Like clay, I shall mold them, and in the furnace of war forge them. They will be of iron will and steel muscle. In great armor shall I clad them, and with the mightiest guns will they be armed. They will be untouched by plague or disease. No sickness will blight them. They will have tactics, strategies, and machines, so that no foe can best them in battle. They are my bulwark against the terror. They are the defenders of humanity. They are my space marines, and they shall know no fear.
Here we go, here we go, here we go. Oh, common orc chant. Now, the orcs, also called greenskins, are just a warlike, ferocious beast of a race. They're really weird though, because they're also like a fungus, like a half fungi, half humanoid type creature. Now, out of all the races that you're going to hear about in Warhammer 40,000, they are by far the most violent, the most extreme, the most brutal, and honestly, they're just crazy, in my opinion. The orcs were designed by an ancient race called the Old Ones. They used to be the Quarks, and they dissolved into the orcs, if you will, years and years later. But we can get more into that in an in-depth video. But they're crazy, they're very violent, and they like to destroy everything. The Space Marines. The Imperium's main force when it came to kicking ass and taking names. Space Marines used to be legions, which were vast in number, and now they're broken into smaller chapter groups. Now, the Space Marines are pretty vast in number, but you have to keep in mind the Imperium as a whole is millions of worlds. So for a lot of the Imperial Guard and the standard frontline folks, they've never really seen a Space Marine. So for them, it's like seeing a ghost. But they're friggin' badasses. They pretty much kill everything in their path. They're genetically altered superhumans. They've got an extra heart. They've got an extra lung. They have higher blood clot capabilities. They're just designed for one thing: war and protecting. Alright, so we're going to talk about the Forces of Chaos. So, the Forces of Chaos are interesting. So, they're basically born from the Warp. The Warp is kind of the emotional manifestation of sentient creatures. I mean, I guess that's the best way I can put into it. It's also referred to as like a hell type place. But basically what the Warp had to it is all those emotions they built up, and they ended up creating these entities known as the Chaos Gods. So you got the four main ones, Nurgle, Slaanesh, Tzinch, and Khorne. God, I almost forgot the Blood God. That was horrible. But those gods basically revolve around change, and basically just not having any order or organization. It's always got to be a constant, evolving, ever-changing type presence. They don't like anything involving order. They have a beef to pick with the Imperium of Man, mainly because the Emperor went into their realm and stole their shit. We still don't even really know what it is, but Chaos is going to be the Chaos Space Marines, Imperial Guard that have turned traitor. You've got demons, greater demons. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Your mind is an endless pit of imagination when it comes to chaos. Alright, the Eldar. The Eldar are one of the oldest races that are still around. They were actually created by the Old Ones, similar to the Necrons. They've got a deep connection to the Warp, which is kind of how they were designed and altered, if you will. They're very sneaky SOBs. They believe in trickery, going around and just basically being sneaky bastards. They like to use the Warp a lot. They have these webway gates which allow them to move very, very quickly throughout planets. Outside of that, half the race, or even probably more than that, were destroyed by basically worshipping the Chaos Gods. They're also the reason that Slaanesh exists, which we can get into more details later on in another video, because it would be way too much for right now. But they're pretty badass. Alright, and next up is going to be the Tyranids, the Great Devourers. Basically, no one really knows where they come from. It's very unknown. We just know that they consume everything that they can. The Adepts of Mars believe that a single consciousness guides them. Their hive fleet, basically, as they expand, each one of the hive ships kind of expands that consciousness and keeps projecting it out. But what's even weirder is it kind of affects the warp as they're going through, into different areas. So basically it makes people go insane as they're starting to show up, and just triggers, mass, basically, psychosis. On top of that, once these Tyranids land, basically just devastate everything, consume it, and basically bring it back to the hive ships. to basically make more Tyranids and keep expanding their species. Well, their one hive mind consciousness. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about the Necrons. So the Necrons were a very old race. They're literally as old as the old ones. They actually lived alongside them. With them, they lived on a very, very shitty world. Constantly getting hit by radiation, constant disease, pestilence, you name it. It was just horrible. But still, I mean, they ended up evolving and, growing technologically wise. And, ended up getting out to the stars. Eventually they decided to exchange their bodies for basically metal. So they transplanted their consciousness into basically an AI type housing where they live, mentally anyways. They at one point, after conquering the galaxy and the old ones, left, got destroyed, what have you, they went dormant and hibernated. Until basically the 41st millennium when the Golden Throne was built and they psychically got woken up. So, mankind does one good thing, fucks everything. Alright, next up is going to be the Imperial Guard, which is going to be the main bulk, and not by the best, bulk as far as the mass amount of humans that they throw at things, of the Imperium. So the Imperial Guard are basically conscripts. They think of it literally as like almost the army, right? Where the Space Marines are, kind of the Marines are a couple steps ahead of the army. No offense to anybody out there. I'm just trying to use a comparison. But they have a navy which consists of all the starcraft that they have out there. Transports that bring people to and from, and then obviously their ground forces, the actual Imperial Guard. That's really about it. They're pretty straightforward. All right, so we're down to the last two. So the Dark Eldar. So earlier, when we were talking about the Eldar, there was a sect of the Eldar who basically decided they wanted to worship the Chaos Gods and embellish in their lust and basically pleasure-seeking, anything involving that, right? Literally anything. So those crazy bastards ended up creating Slaanesh, and when that ended up happening, they created a psychic boom which wiped out a good portion of the Eldar, and also separated them between the Dark Eldar, the Druchii, and the Standard Eldar, or the Eldari craft world folk. Alright, and last up is the Tau Empire. So with the Tau Empire, they are one of the youngest civilizations in the Milky Way galaxy. They develop very, very quickly whenever it comes to their technology. Now, they're divided up into a couple of different groups, the Earth Caste or the Fire Caste, and, they have different roles in the society. They're very, honor-bound, I feel, and very old school in that mentality. But definitely got some really cool looking miniatures, and I really love playing them in Dawn of War 3 as well. On top of that, folks, if you really like this video, one, I appreciate you watching it till the end, because this is one of the first ones that I've really put a lot of time into and putting together, and it took a while to learn all this stuff, but anyways, that's beside the point. If you liked it, throw a like, drop a comment, subscribe if you want to see some more, and I'm looking forward to doing that with you. The other end of it too is, if you haven't gotten into Warhammer yet, pick this up. It's $15 on Amazon. It'll give you, basically this quick guidebook, which gives you some general ideas. It comes with a basic mini, gives you a Space Marine and a Necron, and basically all you need to understand how to play with just those two little guys and get a general concept of Warhammer. Another thing too that I'm looking forward to updating everyone on is this project, which I'm going to start painting over the next week. It's one of the Todd McFarlane, Warhammer 40Ks. You can get those on Amazon. They're unpainted, so you can definitely have some fun with them. And check us out later if you want to see some updates on that project.